Sometimes it feels like the more I like an album, the busier the thumbnail is. So I've got a rough draft of a thumbnail here for this Deadbeat by Tame Impala here. And if you just kind of look at there, that's a pretty good sign of where I am on this album. Is that Yoda being attacked by a seagull? Is that, and I think you should leave sketch? So I'm going to go through each of these things. But before I do, I wanted to take a second and kind of talk about a saying that I think about a lot. Mark Twain said, "Never let the facts get in the way of a good story." Now, obviously, that's a kind of ironic quote that's sort of poking fun at itself, which makes sense. But I think about it a lot as a scholar and as a critic here, a music critic here on YouTube, where it's like, don't let the facts, or the temptation is to not let the facts get in the way of a good thesis, of a good framing device. And I have to tell you, this album, Deadbeat by Tame Impala, really gave me a thesis. It was one of the best theses I've ever had. I know it's theses. It was one of the best I've ever had. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't wait to listen to this album and have the thesis proven true and then talk about it here with you. But it just didn't deliver. And it didn't deliver in the best way. In my opinion, the album delivered artistically, but it didn't deliver my thesis. So this is where it came from. I go to Lyric Genius sometimes, lyricgenius.com or Rap Genius, whatever they're called now. And I clicked on the album cover. It's a picture of him with his kid, and I was like, okay, that's nice. And this is the description that was on Genius as of 7 a.m. on October 18th. By the way, the sun will be rising while I'm doing this video, so the lighting will get better. The cover depicts Kevin and one of his two daughters, Peach, with the title of the album being a reference to his newfound fatherhood and a contrast to the neglect of his parents during his youth. Oh my God. Could anything be better for me than that at this exact moment? The last time he released an album, Slow Rush, 5 years ago, I had older kids, but I was not, I was just recently remarried. And in the 5 years since he released that album, I have had 2 daughters. And he's had 2 daughters. And also in that time, there's been a rise of a different Australian cultural monolith. Now listen, most of my viewers are too young or too old to know about Bluey. All right? But I'm telling you, as a parent, this has appeared in, the last 10 years, and this is a great gift to parents for a couple reasons. One, it's not that proto-fascist Paw Patrol stuff, that copaganda, skip intro, shout out, the copaganda of Paw Patrol, all right? But it's this amazing Australian show about a dad who is super engaged and super playful playing with his 2 daughters, Bluey and Bingo. So to me, this whole review just wrote itself. I could play on the Australian thing, I could tell the stories in here, I could explain my whole life and have it all be all tied in together, and then I listen to the lyrics, and it doesn't match up. Whoever wrote that on Genius, you fooled me. I'm sure you were trying your best. But this album isn't actually, and what I think I like about it, it's not about this is what it's like on the other side. It's the transformation stage. It's moving to that point where you can be Dad from Bluey. By the way, question from our Australian friends and brothers. When are you supposed to say nar instead of no? Because when I read this book, I always say, nar, I don't want to go to bed. But some Australians don't say nar and some do. Is it like a regional thing? Please tell me in the comments if you know. If you nar. So, in reality, I've thought of a different reference, and that ties into the Tim Robinson thing. So on the TV show, I Think You Should Leave, there's an amazing sketch about this guy who's at a party, and he wants to hold a baby, and he holds the baby, and the baby starts crying. And this guy gets sort of obsessed with this baby crying, and he says he knows why. It's because he used to be a piece of ish. And he describes how, and it's mostly known for the comedic absurdity of Robert Vani's Blue Dolphin burned down, Robert Vani's ass out, lives with his, is it brother now? Anyways, the sloppy steaks where you order steaks and you pour water on them and living for New Year's Eve and white Ferraris, all that. Like a sort of parody of somebody thinking about his life in the past. And while it's a very funny sketch, the real importance of it is there's many people, myself very much included, who feel like a piece of ish. By the way, I've tried to stop swearing on this channel because conservatives and conservative politicians are now swearing a lot, and I believe it is to try to intentionally bring down the level of discourse in America to make it easier to instill fascism. So I am resisting the urge to swear. I used to be a piece of ish. I used to be a piece of poop. I'm not anymore. It's actually about his transformation and his insecurity at this baby. And I'll include a link to this sketch if you've never seen it. He sees this baby and he's so insecure, and he keeps saying, I think this baby thinks that people can't change, which is first of all hilarious because if you have babies, that's a lot of people act that way. Like they project so much onto your baby about themselves. But this is that feeling. I used to be. He's like trying to move through this stage. And I think what he's trying to do is really accurately and personally describe exactly the ways he is a piece of poop. And if you watch his interviews, that's what he talks about. This is a very personal album about being a piece of ish. That's what it is. So like, it's not quite Bluey. We're not quite there yet. He's not quite the dad in Bluey who gives up his dream of playing footy with his friends so that he can be there with his daughter. It's called Deadbeat, but I don't think it's entirely ironic. It certainly doesn't feel like it's about his life with his father. Oh my God, I was all set to talk about like my relationship with my father and how despite a lot of the love, there's also a lot of neglect. And I was all set. It's okay. You do have to let the facts get in the way of a good story, in fact. But that's what this album makes me feel. It makes me feel like it is somebody who is acknowledging, who is describing their crappy ways in the past, their old ways. And every time when he sings about it, about being a vampire and up all night and all that stuff in Dracula, it feels to me like he's saying that he lives for New Year's Eve. Actually, do you think this is pushed back? So that's how I feel about this album. It's that movement. And it's not quite what I wanted, because I really want the super heartfelt fatherhood album, because that's how I feel right now in my life. But he's not there. He's at an earlier stage in that transformation, I presume. In a lot of ways, too, like, so I'm not too up on Tame Impala discourse. You know, I'm not like a super fan. So I don't know how much people talk about him being John Lennon-y. I mean, his voice is kind of high and nasally, and he's able to strike that. But certainly with this album, with like the voice memo that starts off the whole thing and the adulation of his family, this does also feel quite John Lennon coded at times, but late John Lennon, like not Run for Your Life, Hitting Ladies John Lennon coded of the 60s, more like the late 70s. I used to be a piece of ish, right? That's sort of what the late 70s were for John Lennon, was him sort of figuring out how to try to be a dad. So yeah, like I said, I'm not like a Tame Impala super fan. I mean, I do have, that's the signed poster. So I do have the framed Slow Rush autograph poster, autographed by every single member of the band. I don't know how they got them all in one place, but they did. But that's the only album I know. That's it. I've heard the other stuff, sure. But if you don't know the lore of this channel, between the age of 25 and 40, I just shut myself off to new music. I got old. And then at 40, I got young again. I started listening to new music. I started experiencing it. And so I was aware of Tame Impala. They were around enough. My ex-wife liked some of their music, so we listened to some of that sometimes then. But in general, like, I'm not super into them. And yet, I think I'm a real fan. And I'll tell you why. Because I love this album. I love Deadbeat. And I loved Slow Rush. I mean, like, I bought it on vinyl. It's one of the best albums I've reviewed in the history of this channel. And I've reviewed, at this point, over 1,000 albums. And that's easily in the top 5% of albums that I reviewed. And this one is totally different, wildly, wildly different. And it's good. And it's good that it's different. And that's why I feel like I'm a real fan, because I think you're a real fan of an artist. And again, you can like just decide to not be a fan of an artist anymore. That's fine. But if an artist zigs and zags and changes their style and you don't like what they're doing now, like that's okay. But that's a sign that you weren't actually a fan of the artist. You are a fan of some of the art that that artist made. So I talk about it all the time, but in 2001, when 2000, when Radiohead came out with Kid A, I was one of the people who was like, "This is garbage. What is this ticky-tacky computer stuff? If I want to listen to computer stuff, I'd go to Ibiza," right? I was one of the people who said that. And over time, my trust in the artist led me to love that album as much, and in fact, more than anything they'd released beforehand. But like, it made it that I had to choose. Am I a fan of the art that this person makes or the artist themselves? This kind of change, this kind of cleavage, this kind of like break where you have to decide, which is it? Do you like some of Tame Impala's music or do you like Tame Impala? That's what this album is challenging you to do, because he's not selling out. He's not changing who he is. There's nothing about this album that is like artistically, meaningfully different than his earlier stuff that people might like. But it does sound different. I also think, so if you're playing Professor Skye Bingo, Radiohead and Kanye are always good to be mentioned. But I do also think, obviously Kanye is the best example probably of the 21st century of doing that zigzagging art thing where you just make sure that people love your art and not just some of the art that you make. And I feel like this does have a sort of Yeezus feel to it, where, as far as I could tell, Slow Rush is a perfect album. It's just a perfect album. It's just perfectly constructed. It is warm. It is incomprehensibly well produced. And then this feels like the raw follow-up that just sort of says, like, what if I just did stuff that wasn't that hard? I'm also reminded a lot of Tyler, the Creator. Like, I feel like they're very similar people, right? They're similar ages, right? And they seem to have some similar struggles with figuring out how to be men, how to be adults. And they just are a couple of guys who just hang out in the studio, just surrounded by stuff, making music all by themselves. I don't know. I just think that's a fun interaction. I did watch a couple interviews to get ready for this. I watched the Zane Lowe interview. Man, why do people hate on Zane Lowe so much? He's fine. I mean, he's not like the best, but as far as like a guy who gets a lot of great interviews, he's not bad. He's okay. He's pretty good even. Anyways, apparently Kevin Parker was going to release a techno album just like anonymously, that he wanted to make this music so much, but eventually the desire to make a Tame Impala album overcame him, and he decided to merge those things together. If you don't see the beauty in that, if you don't see like the artistic need, he like wanted to do something, but he got so overwhelmed by his desire to create and to sing and to express himself that he had to merge together these two ideas, which, might not actually go together for most people. Techno and Tame Impala might not go together for most people, but it's such a natural outgrowth of whatever his creativity is. At times, it feels like this is two albums. It feels at times like a pop EP, just like kind of well-written pop songs. I think he's very influenced by working with Dua Lipa. By the way, that album was great. Y'all Are Crazy, Radical Optimism. I said it was good on this channel. I meant it. Time will be very kind to Radical Optimism. You wait. There's a reckoning coming. So I have like a cold or something. I'm like losing my voice. It's that time in the semester where professors start losing their voice. It sucks. So at times it's like a pop EP. And then other times it's just this electronic dance music. According to things I read, there's a lot of electronic dance music in Australia. It's called doof music. because someone heard it and went upstairs and said, okay, I'm not going to do the accent. I am going to do the accent. Nar! Turn off the doof, 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 doof music. And there is a feel to that where it feels like he's sort of doing a pop thing inspired by working with Dua Lipa, and then he's sort of just going as far as he can into doof, 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 doof music. My favorite thing that I heard him say was an interview with JJJ, Triple J, where he described this album as being noticeably more human. And that's where I want to get back into the comparison with Slow Rush, and and actually even go back to the comparison between early Radiohead and later Radiohead. The desire to make electronic music often is a desire to humanize yourself. And that is at odds with our old-fashioned conception of what electronic music is. We perceive of electronic music as being just purely mechanical, just a machine that does all the work for you, and there's no humanness in it. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, where seriously, if you heard a drum machine in a rock song, you'd just be like, these guys sold out, that's not music, hire real musicians, right? Seriously, it was a big deal. But what Kevin Parker has done, what Tame Impala did with this album, is make something that is really painfully, awesomely human, while at the same time just being totally electronic and not having, frankly, my favorite thing about Tame Impala in it. I'll get to it. Do you know what my favorite part of Tame Impala is? I'll have to tell you at some point in the video. But what I want to do is I want to start off with the end. Because I think that in order to understand this album, to explain this album, you really need to go to the best song on the album, the final track. Apparently this was the single. I didn't listen to it beforehand. I really appreciate that. But the song End of Summer is as good as anything on Slow Rush. It is. And I assume it's as good as anything he's ever recorded. But again, I'm not a super big Tame Impala fan. I was dead to new music for most of his career. And I want to tell you a story about listening to End of Summer. So my wife made this like really nice kind of eggplant sauce with like capers and raisins. It was wild. It was really good. It's some kind of Italian sauce. And I was cleaning up after dinner, as I like to do. And I put this music on, and I put it on the Bluetooth speaker, and I just turn it up way too loud. So I've got the 3-year-old and the 1-year-old, and they are currently just crawling around the house. They do this thing where they're sort of wrestling with each other, like this close to hurting each other at all times, just making sure that as a parent, you can never just sort of like let your guard down, and you have to sort of always be a little like, and my wife comes down, and she says, "What the hell is this?" And then my 3-year-old says, "Poppy, what is this?" I said, "It's music." And she says, "No, it's not." She's a music critic. "No, it's not." And it's just this beautiful, thumping, doofy, doof, doof, doof. And that great organ that's descending there. And my wife said, please turn it off. This is creating too much havoc. This is getting the girls too activated, Old Bingo and Bluey are just jumping off the walls, and the sound is just too much. So then about 2 hours later, I'm in the baby pit, which is this little fenced off area in my living room. And my wife's upstairs. I don't know, she's doing something else. So I'm with both girls, and I put the song back on, and I really crank it up. And then we're sort of like kind of wrestling and sort of playing, and it has this just moment of just absolute sublimity. Sublimeness? I should probably know the word. Salt Lacroix is a Instagram video essayist who is being a parody, a satire of influencers. Anyways, her work is really good. I saw something she made recently about music through AI is losing its ability to be sublime. Sublime is when you feel transcended, is when you feel lifted up. And this song the same way that I felt, I don't know, on track or whatever off of that, has that sublime in it. His voice is so pure, but what really matters is the dirtiness of the thump, thump, thump. And he said in that interview that he likes this album most when it's dirty, and that's how I feel. The dirtiest this gets, the simpler it gets, the better. Thump, 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 thump. This ethereal, and the way that he brings it out and brings it back, you just never want these songs, at least I don't want these long songs to end. The short pop songs are good, but when they're over, I'm fine. When these long songs end, I'm like, no, you gotta put it back on. And he's jamming. He's electronically jamming, like by himself. These great attacking sounds, wah, wah, and the way the voice goes and comes back. A little pitched up thing, and this little pitched up sound here, where I'm not really sure what he's even saying. And all these lyrics about just being kind of a bad guy, just a real piece of ish, a real sloppy steaks kind of guy. I know I can seem uncaring in moments like these. I hope it's enough to say my words don't come with ease, and I'm sure you won't believe, but you'll be on my mind. I waited till the end of summer, and I ran out of time. So he's somebody who's trying. He's trying to reach. He's trying to get to that point of understanding and connection, but he can't quite get there. He's constantly throughout this album talking about the way he's perceived and the way he feels, like he's struggling. He is really trying to not be a piece of poop. He's really trying. Now, whether or not he succeeds, we don't know, right? That's the question of the song. But what makes it so great for me, oh yeah, do it on my own, going through it on my own, is the way it feels like it's going to end. And then the dirtiest of doofs comes in. This doof is so dirty. How dirty is it? It's very dirty. I'm sorry. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning on my day off to record this video because that's how busy I am. Because I'm in frickin' Bluey land. I got to go to a birthday party at 1, flu shots at 10:30, farmer's market at 9. Plus, I got to prepare all my lessons. So you're just going to have to stay there. How dirty is it? Very, very dirty. But then the voice is just so pure. And just when it keeps coming back. And to me, one of the absolute best songs of the year, some of the best music I've heard all year, some of my favorite music I've just ever heard. That's what this song is. And listen, if you're an old school Tame Impala fan and you're like, I still don't feel it, I believe you. You might just be like I was when I was 23 years old, 24 years old. When I heard Kid A and was like, I don't know. Just stay with it. But let's go to the beginning of the album, shall we? Let's talk about the opening, My Old Ways, which again, I immediately started thinking of John Lennon because, the Beatles keep going back and finding old demos of John Lennon's to like spruce up. And the problem always is they are never better than the demos. The demos are always amazing. You don't actually need Jeff Lynne's terrible production or George Harrison's lazy slide guitar. There's like a homeliness to the demo, and I think that's on purpose. I think, as far as I can tell, how do I feel when I hear My Old Ways? I feel like one of his kids sitting at the table, seeing him in the other room playing piano and singing. It just has this really connectiveness, and it's also a declarative statement about the album, that the album, which is going to be all that doofy doof stuff, it starts off with the most human thing possible. Somebody playing an acoustic piano on a voice memo. And that's the most humanness. That's him indicating to us, hey, you might think this is inhuman. That's because you don't understand. And then here comes the boots and cats. Boots and cats is the term for that. I don't know if it's a universal term. I think I first heard it in a Geico commercial. That's how much of a real music critic I am. But the term is boots and cats, and it's a kind of way of talking about a beat. So it's a 4 on the floor, which is ever since disco, we realized that's the best way to write dance music, which means the bass drum is on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the and cats is usually the and is in between the 1 and 2. It's a hi-hat. Oots. and then the cats is the snare. Boots and cats and boots and cats and boots and cats and boots and cats. It's the standard unit of drums in techno. And this album uses it as well as anybody has ever used it, at least as far as I've heard. I don't know. You go check out the Wonky Angle. I'm sure they have more developed thoughts on this than I do. But I absolutely love it. And meanwhile, all these lyrics and this piano, it's almost Nilsson-like. Really. I don't think I put Nilsson in my thumbnail, but Nilsson's an interesting example too, because he was somebody who was constantly trying to be a better person, but failed. Like, he never made it to the Bluey stage. He was just stuck in Rob Bravani. He was just stuck in I Used to Be a Piece of Ish. He was just stuck in Living for New Year's Eve. I tell myself I'm only human. That's what keeps on coming back. So what I like is that he's giving himself forgiveness. He's forgiving himself for his attraction to his old ways. And it feels to me like this is not the song of somebody who, like On Track, going back to that song, I don't think he's saying like, I'm all messed up and all that, and I'm going to keep being it and I can't change. I think it's like he's talking about the difficulty of it. Just all these layers and like these 2 minutes of jamming at the end and this restrained piano solo. This like drum machine pattern gets like almost imperceptibly more complex in the last minute. Man, this album's so whoop. Don't believe Kevin Parker when he's like, I'm just releasing this and I didn't put that much work into it. Don't believe it for a second. There's so much nuance. There's so much detail. There's so much filigree in this sculpture. And then at the very end, you just hear his voice and the sound of him getting up from his bench, right? As human as you can be. And then we get to the Beatles cover, No Reply. I get one joke. It's not a Beatles cover. More clubby, very cool drum machine, very Portishead-like. It reminds me a little bit of the Portishead 3 album. And to me, it's very relatable because it's like I spend a lot of my life with people thinking I'm aloof. And I am not aloof. I'm an anti-aloof. I'm not aloof at all. Like I really care about people and I really want them to feel like I respect them and love them because I feel like I love and respect all humanity. But apparently the way I come across is like a really like arrogant dude who just likes himself. So I love this song because it's him talking about like second guessing, feeling like he's stupid. And there's this whole verse where he talks about his feelings of insecurity and how they get over. And he just keeps building up. Was I impolite? Was that joke all right? I just want to seem like a normal guy. You know how it's like. I try to see my side. You're a cinephile. I watch Family Guy on a Friday night off a rogue website when I should be out with some friends of mine running reckless wild in the streets at night, singing Lust for Life with our arms out wide. Oh no, it just builds up so much. And he's talking about the FOMO inside his own mind. Like he's missing out on being with other people, but he just doesn't know how to be with other people. It's great because it's not just an album about like going out and getting drunk and doing ayahuasca in Billabong or whatever the hell you do. Wait, is he from Western Australia? I didn't even know that. That's wild. I think I saw something the other day that Perth is the most isolated city in the world. Is that true? Can you tell me also in the comments if that's true? That like just by sheer distance, because there's nothing else in that beautiful continent until you get to the East Coast. Is that true? Anyways, like it's not just an album about like I used to go crazy. It's also about the fact that going crazy was an attempt to avoid intimacy, and now that he's not getting crazy anymore, what he has to fight against is isolation and just doing things that are just like watching pirated versions of Family Guy. Hey, Kevin Parker, dude, you can afford Hulu, so just or you can just buy the DVDs, man. You're cool. You don't need to pirate stuff. I'm not judging you at home if you choose not to do Hulu and you choose to pirate. That's your own thing. Anyways. Then Dracula is kind of my least favorite song. I know it's like a single. I like how the Boots and Cats are slightly stilted and there's kind of this epic multi-layered vocals here. I like the way the melody kind of moves around. It's never quite rooted. But I don't know. It's just a very goofy song with a very simple premise. Run from the sun like Dracula. Isn't the view spectacular? I don't know. I get it. He's describing his old ways. He's describing living for New Year's Eve. He's describing being a piece of ish, and also maybe you know, he's releasing this album in October. Releasing a song called Dracula in October is not a bad idea because of Halloween. The video makes it more likable, where it just, you sort of see this party in what I assume is the middle of the outback or whatever, and it's just very kind of dusty and nasty, and he's just walking around. Next song is a Beck cover, Loser. I get 2 jokes. It's not, but definitely calling a song Loser just immediately puts me in the space of Beck. That was his breakout single. I remember very much when that song came out. But this is a different kind of loser, because when Beck sings he's a loser, he's actually saying, I'm so cool. Like, you don't even know how cool I am, so I'm just going to call myself a loser because that's how cool I am. Whereas this song is him saying, I used to be a piece of ish. I said used to. Okay, remember how I said my favorite thing about Tame Impala? It's the drums. So if I can love this album with there being almost no drumming, he's one of my favorite drummers in music, and I know he's not a drummer, but there's something about the way he plays drums. It just gets the people going, okay? It's provocative. This album is almost entirely depriving me of drums, except for this song, but still, it's great. I'm a loser, babe. I'm a loser, baby. I'm a loser, babe. I mean, he's clearly drawing the parallels there. Do you want to tear my heart out? I'm a tragedy trying to figure this whole mess out. Like I said, I wanted him to be dead, you know? I wanted him to be dead. I wanted him to be that scene right there. Okay, why is Bluey such a great show? Thanks for looking after us, Dad, Bluey says, and gives him a hug. You're welcome. It's way better than Paw Patrol. Paw Patrol's like, oh, look, we have a new friend. It's our Labrador friend, Icy. Yeah. Sorry. I just wrote a whole thing in my head about an ICE agent working for Paw Patrol. It writes itself, frankly. You're too young to get this joke, but trust me, it's really good. Sorry. Maybe, hey, Paw Patrol at least has a character named Skye, so that's cool. Oblivion's a little bit further out. We're starting to get into the part of the album that I love, the more spacey part, but still, it's kind of like weird Latin-y. I've seen people describe it as reggaeton, which I don't think it's technically the reggaeton beat, although it is close. It's not the dembow rhythm here. But I really do like how like things just keep kind of wandering, and there is like actual polyrhythm in this song as all these things barely come together. And I like how the audio actually glitches out. And the back half has this really tight electronic production that is just very cool that I love. At times, this album reminds me of the song by Annie Lennox, walking on broken glass. Ding, 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 ding. I'll include a link to that too. I'm totally going to forget. I'll try to remember to include a link to that song too. It was a pop hit of the 90s that has this kind of like jaunty electronic but very human feel. And again, I don't know if these lyrics are about love, about monogamy, about his kids. It won't stay the same in a normal life. I want to, I would. If I would never get to you, I would. I'm going to oblivion. I don't know. It feels like that's what it's about, but maybe I am forcing my reading into it. Maybe I'm trying to not let the facts get in the way of a good story. Then the album gets really good. So the first half is fine. The first half is great. But the second half is where we just enter the sublime with a song like Not My World, which on Zane Lowe he described as like not a song but a piece of music, and somehow that works. This like flangey house party sounds, or it sounds like he's opening up the door to another room, kind of like some bits off of Homework by Daft Punk. And like there's like a sound of a amp being plugged in, almost sounds like an alarm, and his voice isn't high here, it's like actually kind of mid-range. Halfway through, just the way he plays with this alarm and this like really super complicated sounding, almost like Casio drum beat here, these amazing seagull bits, and then instrumental bits, and then we get to the reason why I put Yoda being chased by seagulls. If you've never seen Bad Lip Reading's Empire Strikes Back, they have a whole song with Yoda singing to seagulls. Stop it now. Ooh ah ooh 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 ah ooh ooh ah ooh 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 ah ooh ooh ah ooh 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 ah ooh ooh. It's that same thing. It's just once you hear it, you can't unhear it. But I love it because it has like a full EDM drop, even with like the snares getting you psyched, and it's like he doesn't go too far. He goes just far enough with the EDM drop feel. I've seen a lot of reviewers refer to a thriller feel to this album. I get it. Like with the end here, and even in the video for Dracula, it doesn't feel like he's trying to imitate Thriller, Thriller Night, right? None of that. Stardust, what was the original? But more that he is trying to capture the feeling of that song when it does the, like the end bit, the little dance bit at the end, which, let's be honest, is the best. Thriller's not a great song. I'm sorry. It's a very influential video on a great album. But Thriller itself as a song, I don't like the chorus. I don't like it. But the end bit, that whole bit, that kind of like slightly spooky low bass thing, was it Rod Temperton wrote that? Amazing. Just amazing. So I feel like that energy is often in this album. And the end of Thriller energy, that's what I want, not the beginning. I can't stand day after day walking just in time to catch the last hours of sunlight. We were going home, then walk by. Must be nice. Makes me realize it's not my world. So I think it goes back into this idea of him trying to enter Bluey land, trying to be okay with domesticity, trying to be happy with the best thing in life, which is being a parent, being a non-abusive parent, being a present parent is the best thing in life. It's not easy to achieve. I don't achieve it. I don't achieve that every day, right? But when I am a present parent, that is the best part of life. And just the kind of alienation that he feels. To me, when he says this is a personal album, I really get it. I feel deeply, deeply connected to him on this album because it really feels like he is struggling really hard to not be Dracula. Then we get to the song Piece of Heaven. Jesus Christ, these synth strings, these nice low bass. His voice is way more earnest here, more kind of broken glass, stabby keyboards here. It gets super fun and poppy when the drums kick in. It makes you want to do that. What was that? From White Man Can't Jump, or is it the Jay and Silent Bob dance? It makes you want to kind of do that kind of dance. You know what I mean? And it's cool because it's called, what's it called? In Your Room? What's this song called? What's this song called? What is this song called? Piece of Heaven. So it's about being in someone else's room. And that made me think of the song In My Room by Brian Wilson. And I realized, hey, can you see Brian Wilson on my thumbnail? He's there. Do you see him? Okay. The thing about Brian Wilson is obviously he had major problems with mental health, much like Kanye, that basically destroyed his life, much like Kanye. He stayed out of the public eye, unlike Kanye. But like the myth of Brian Wilson for music nerds is that he's this like super mega genius who does everything by himself and has this beautiful vision. And like the main vision that you have if you're a Brian Wilson fan is him alone in the studio, just like coordinating things and putting things together and coordinating them and having people play things. And like really, Kevin Parker really is millennial Brian Wilson. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person to say that, but he really is the millennial Brian Wilson. And Brian Wilson is someone who's never able to like really figure it out. And again, it's because of the mental health issues. I mean, it's like, this is brain chemistry stuff, right? It's not personal failure or whatever. But it's great because it feels to me like this song where he's talking about the heaven of being in someone else's room feels connected to the in my room feeling. And in both cases, we have figures who are almost incapable of getting out of themselves to serve the people in their family that they need to. So, I don't know. Also, the obsession with the ocean. Apparently, Kevin Parker is just obsessed with the ocean. Which I get. The ocean is amazing. I heard him try to describe it to Zane Lowe. And if you ever, get to spend any time near the ocean, you'll get it. Almost like a little lullaby at the end. And so the question is, whose room is it? Is it just some woman who he likes his room? Is it his child? When I first heard it, I thought he was talking about his kid because, kids have messy rooms if you let them. So I imagine him going in and saying oh, this room is just like heaven, right? That's what I pictured. I pictured him being all Bluey, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Or is it his own room, like his own room where he records music? Is this actually in my room? Is the person he's talking to like his muse? I don't know. Obsolete has this nice kind of jaunty guitar lick. I heard someone say Phil Collins, and I can't get it out of my head, so I'm just going to put that in your head too. Might have been on Twitter, not Twitter. I don't know. I'm not on Twitter. Must have been some review I saw. This song, I don't know. It's a little bit wandering, kind of like talking in the middle, not much of a melody. There's a key change, which I never like. I like the lyric, I may not be your man, but I would understand. This feels to me maybe a little bit too much like the kind of pop stuff, and then it's just saved. And then the whole song is saved, like many songs on this album, way improved by the instrumental bit at the end. This Tame Impala style hook played on this cool keyboard sound that gets like doubled and tripled and like keeps kind of like rising and kind of like a weirdo Baroque style thing. It just sounds like they're goofing around at the end. And this is where I'm reminded that he did those songs with Justice. Maybe he's just trying to be like more like Justice. But don't worry. If I didn't love that song, Ethereal Connection is next. This just really fast drum machine with this great ratty sound on the ones. Full doofy doof boots and cats. It takes so much time to develop these added layers, and the singing is far away, and these thumpy thumps, and these lyrics about growth. I don't say it too often. It isn't usually my style. I'm here whatever happens. Don't you know that I'll stand by? He's really trying, everybody. He starts off the whole album being like, it's hard to be, I'm tempted by all this stuff. I'm actually Dracula. I'm Kiefer Sutherland, right? But then here he is. He's like trying to say he'll be here. He's trying to say like, I know I'm distant. I know it's hard to be with me. I see the real world. You know, whenever I get dressed up, I feel like an ex-con trying to make good. Those old Smog lyrics, you kind of have that feeling here. You feel like he might be too isolated, but he's trying. I'm here, whatever happens. Don't you know that I'll stand by? Hey, that's a Tame Impala lyric, everybody. One second. Here's a Tame Impala lyric for you. I am here, whatever happens. Don't you know that I will stand by? That doesn't sound like a Tame Impala lyric because he's growing. See you next Tuesday is the next song. No, I'm sorry. See you on Monday. You're lost. Very sort of like futuristic synth line here. Very sweet, very vocal led, very repetitive and simple. Very much like a minimalist pop song. She said, I'm the one you yawned, and you can turn me yawn, but life ain't too much. Anyway, I love the post-chorus instrumental here. It almost gets, again, Baroque here with the kind of like singing in round and multiple voices here. Little Brian Wilson singing too, kind of high up singing here. I love it. I love the way it kind of falls apart for a little bit, where there's like not even keyboards, there's just vocals. It becomes like a chamber, like a chorale. And then at the end, there's like a vocal exercise of You're Lost. Then we get to Afterthought, which according to him is his favorite song on the album because he recorded it after the album was finished. So he had mastered the album, and then he threw it together quickly. This is probably my least favorite song on the album, but I love it. Like, I love it that he loves it. Again, it's very kind of thrillery with the bass. Everyone's saying it, but there you go. I love the slight reverb on the clicks on the 2 and 4, but this feels to me like the purest example of him just trying to do what Dua Lipa can do. Just make a good pop song from a third person. This doesn't feel to me like a personal song. This feels like his attempt at writing an in-diva pop song. He's just trying to be Carly Rae Jepsen here, you know? And it's the least complex musically. It's the least personal. I beg you, don't make me say out loud, no matter what I do, I'm an afterthought to you. Okay, it's a good song. It's super catchy. He just repeats the same verse, and there's like a full 80s synth solo in here. It's like it's a combination of being proudly half-baked. And like, this is important, everybody. It's important. When artists who are perfectionists do something that's not perfect, that is in some ways greater effort than perfection. Okay? It's okay. Picasso's abstract work would not be as effective if he didn't know how to actually paint, which of course he actually does. He could paint things with great realism, lighting, touch, solidity, everything. So like, when things are like this, I think it's intentional, and to me it feels different. And then of course the album ends with End of Summer, which I just want to go back and listen to right now. I just want to listen to that song all the goddamn time. I just want to listen to that song all the time. My poor family. This isn't music. Jeez. So let's see. Did I get to everything in my thumbnail here? I think I did. I think I did. You know, the yay thing was just kind of quick there. The main thing that I want to emphasize, and I might do a simpler thumbnail when I finally release it, is just that the images of Tim Robinson holding a baby and feeling like a piece of ish on one side, and then Dad holding Bluey on the other side, and Kevin Parker being in between those two poles. You get the point? All right. Well, it's 8:10. I had to be done by 8:15 in order for my entire family to work. I got to poop the dogs. I got to make breakfast. So, let's go. All right. Until next time, nar.